The woman who commanded the room worth tens of millions of dollars screamed, "Does anyone here speak Chinese?" And the first person to respond was the janitor pushing a trash cart past the door. Chicago's skyline suites buzzed with the early morning hum of luxury. It was 7:14 a.m., and in the opulent conference room on the 14th floor, chaos reigned. Rachel Whitaker, CEO of Whitaker Global, paced like a caged lioness, her navy suit crisp against the glass walls overlooking Lake Michigan. Her team suits and ties, laptops open, coffee cups forgotten, stared in helpless silence as the phone on the table blared an angry stream of Mandarin from the speaker. The deal was crumbling. $12 million hung in the balance, a partnership with a Beijing-based tech firm that could catapult her company into the Asian market. But the interpreter had called in sick at the last minute, traffic snarled by a freak snowstorm. Rachel's assistant fumbled with her phone, dialing frantically for backups, but no one was available. The voice on the other end grew louder, more insistent, threatening to pull out entirely. "Get me anyone who speaks Mandarin, or this is over," Rachel barked, her voice echoing off the polished mahogany table. Down the hallway, Caleb Morgan pushed his cleaning cart with practiced efficiency. At 34, he was a ghost in the hotel's ecosystem, invisible, essential, forgotten. His gray uniform blended with the shadows, the squeak of the wheels, the only announcement of his presence. He started early, always early, to avoid the guests and staff who might notice him too closely. Caleb hadn't always been this way. 3 years ago, he was a graduate from the University of Michigan, holding a degree in linguistics, fluent in 3 languages, with a teaching certificate tucked away in his dreams. He and his wife Anna had met in a Mandarin class during undergrad. She was the one who sparked his love for the language, the tones, the characters, the poetry hidden in everyday words. They planned trips to Beijing, Xi'an, Sichuan, whispering phrases to each other in bed, laughing at their accents. Evan came along 5 years into their marriage, a bundle of curiosity who gurgled his first words in a mix of English and Chinese, but life shattered in an instant. A drunk driver on a rainy night, Anna gone before Evan turned 5. Caleb's world collapsed. Grief swallowed his ambitions. He quit teaching, sold their house to pay bills, and drifted into jobs that asked nothing of him. Now he cleaned hotel rooms, living in secret in the basement storage closet with Evan. No one knew. No one could know. Eviction notices and child services loomed if they did. That morning, Caleb rose from the makeshift bed of stacked towels and old blankets. Evan 8 now stirred beside him, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The boy wore an oversized hoodie, his dark hair tousled like his father's. Caleb handed him half a cold sandwich from the paper bag breakfast scavenged from the staff kitchen the night before. "Dad, can I stay down here today?" Evan whispered, his voice small in the dim light. Caleb knelt, ruffling his son's hair. "Yeah, buddy. But lock the door behind me. Don't open for anyone." Evan nodded, clutching the sandwich like a lifeline. Caleb pushed the cart out the door, clicking shut. He rode the service elevator to the 14th floor, the VIP International Wing. Empty hallways greeted him perfect. He mopped methodically, his mind wandering to the Mandarin phrases he still murmured to Evan at night. "Wan and good night. Wo aini, I love you." It was all he had left of Anna, a language forgotten in his daily grind but alive in their hidden world. Then the shout pierced the quiet. "Yu ren neng fan yi ma ching ma shang." "Someone can translate, please. Right now." Caleb froze. The voice came from the conference room at the end of the hall, urgent, laced with panic. He edged closer, peering through the glass door. A woman in a sharp suit. Rachel Whitaker. He recognized her from hotel gossip, gestured wildly at her team. "Where's the interpreter?" she demanded. "Get me anyone who speaks Mandarin, or this deal is dead." Her assistant stammered apologies, but the room was frozen. At that moment, Evan appeared in the hallway. The boy had sneaked up for a quick bathroom break, as he sometimes did when the coast was clear. In his hand, he held a sleek smartphone, buzzing incessantly. "Dad, I found this in the restroom. It's ringing." Caleb took it, glancing at the screen. The caller ID flashed a Beijing number. His heart raced. The phone vibrated again, the Mandarin plea echoing from the room. Memories flooded him, Anna's voice, soft and encouraging. "If you can't live like before. At least let our son live decently." He looked at Evan, then at the phone, then through the glass. Caleb straightened his uniform, pushed the cart aside, and walked in. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "I can help if you need a translator." The room fell silent. Rachel turned her eyes, widening, at the man in janitorial gray holding a stranger's phone. "You speak Chinese?" she asked, skepticism sharpening her tone. "Enough to keep you from losing $12 million, Caleb replied calmly. "Hand me the phone." For a split second, doubt flickered across her face. Then, with no other options, she did. The most powerful woman in the building stared as the janitor, the invisible man, stepped forward to save her empire. Caleb took the phone from Rachel's outstretched hand, his calloused fingers brushing hers for a fleeting moment. The device felt foreign in his grip, sleek, expensive, a stark contrast to the worn flip phone tucked in his uniform pocket. He pressed it to his ear, aware of every eye in the room boring into him. The team executives in tailored suits, assistants with tablets poised, watched in stunned silence. Rachel crossed her arms, her expression a mix of desperation and doubt, as if handing her lifeline to a stranger was the ultimate gamble. The voice on the other end erupted immediately, a torrent of Mandarin laced with frustration. "Ni men je shi shen me yi si hetong tiao quan buch ang chu women buneng jie shou je zhong fa zun zhong ruguo bu jie jue women ju chetui." Caleb's mind shifted gears seamlessly, the language flooding back like an old friend. He hadn't spoken Mandarin in a professional capacity since his teaching days, but the rhythms were etched into him. "Ni hao," he began, his tone calm and measured. "Jelishi Whitaker, Global Defani Dai Biao, wo hui bang nin jejue wenti, chingao su wo nin de yijian." The man paused, caught off guard by the fluent response. Caleb could picture him, a middle-aged executive in a Beijing high-rise, papers scattered, perhaps nursing a cooling cup of tea. The complaints resumed, detailing ambiguous clauses in the contract, perceived slights in negotiation etiquette, and a looming threat to withdraw entirely. $12 million teetered on the edge of cultural misunderstandings and bruised egos. Caleb listened intently, nodding, even though the man couldn't see him. He glanced at Rachel, who leaned forward, her knuckles white on the table. The room's air conditioner hummed softly, a mundane backdrop to the high-stakes drama. "Wo lijie nin de dan yu," Caleb replied. "Whitaker Global henzhong shi je chi hezuo. Women ke yi tao lun tiao quan que bao shuang fang man yi." He didn't just translate, he bridged. Drawing from his linguistics background, he infused his words with the subtle nuances of Chinese business culture, humility, emphasis on mutual respect, long-term harmony. "Women yuan yi tiao zheng di san tiao yi fuhe nin de yao q," he suggested, referencing a clause about delivery timelines that had sparked the ire. It was a concession Rachel hadn't authorized, but Caleb sensed it would de-escalate. He shot her a quick look. She nodded imperceptibly, trusting him in the moment. The conversation flowed for 10 minutes, the man's tone softening from accusatory to grudgingly cooperative. Caleb wove in phrases that honored the partner's position, "Nin de jianjie hen yu jiaji." Your insights are valuable, turning confrontation into collaboration. A joke slipped in light and culturally apt about the challenges of cross-time zone meetings, eliciting the first chuckle from the other end. Rachel's team exchanged whispers. The young marketing director, a sharp-dressed woman in her 20s, mouthed, "Who is this guy?" to her colleague. An older executive adjusted his glasses, leaning in as if witnessing a miracle. Caleb ignored them, focused on the rhythm of the dialogue. 15 minutes in, the laughter came genuine, relieved. The man shared a brief anecdote about a past deal gone awry due to a translation mishap, and Caleb responded with empathy, steering back to resolution. By the 20th minute, agreement crystallized. "How women tongyi jikshu," the man said. "Good, we agree to proceed." Caleb sealed it with a formal closing, "Gangxie nin de shinren kidai wailai de hezuo." He ended the call and handed the phone back to Rachel. The room exhaled collectively. For a beat, no one spoke. Then the marketing director broke the silence. "Who are you?" Rachel didn't answer her. She stared at Caleb, her composure cracking into something like awe. You just saved a $12 million deal. Caleb shrugged a faint smile, tugging at his lips. Guess it's the first time I've cleaned up something that wasn't a floor. The quip landed, and Rachel laughed, a real, unguarded sound that echoed in the glass-walled space. It transformed her face, softening the sharp edges of the CEO persona. Her team joined in nervously, the tension dissolving. She extended her hand again, this time with genuine warmth. Rachel Whitaker. Caleb Morgan, he replied, shaking it firmly. Father to an 8-year-old. And maybe I just had an interesting day. She tilted her head, her eyes appraising him anew, not as a janitor, but as someone who'd just proven his worth in her world. Caleb, I don't think this is the last time we'll meet. He nodded, excusing himself politely. As he pushed his cart back down the hallway, the weight of the moment settled in. His hands trembled slightly, not from nerves, but from the spark of something long, dormant. Possibility. Back in the basement, Evan unlocked the door at his knock. How was work, Dad? Caleb pulled him into a hug, the boy's small frame fitting perfectly against him. Better than usual, kiddo. A lot better. Evan didn't press content with the sandwich remnants and his father's presence. But, as Caleb lay on the makeshift bed that night, whispering Mandarin lullabies, he wondered if invisibility was truly his fate. For the first time in years, the world had seen him, and it hadn't turned away. 2 days later, Caleb tried to slip back into his routine as if nothing had changed. He rose before dawn in the basement storage room, the air thick with the scent of cleaning chemicals and damp concrete. Evan slept soundly on their pallet of blankets, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm. Caleb, dressed in his gray uniform, packed their meager breakfast, another scavenged sandwich, and kissed his son's forehead before locking the door behind him. The hotel corridors felt the same endless stretches of carpet to vacuum mirrors, to polished trash bins, to empty. He avoided eye contact with the staff, nodding curtly when necessary. The conference room on the 14th floor was pristine now, no trace of the frantic meeting. Caleb mopped the floor there methodically, his mind replaying the phone call in fragments, the Mandarin words, Rachel's laugh, the surreal weight of being seen. But he pushed it down. Visibility came with risks. Invisibility was safe. By mid-morning, he was at the front desk restocking supplies when the lobby manager approached, a sealed envelope in hand. Morgan, this came for you from HR. Urgent. Caleb's stomach twisted. He took the envelope, his name typed neatly on the front. Inside was a formal letter. Invitation to interview. Urgent request from CEO Rachel Whitaker. His hand shook as he read the details of a meeting that afternoon. The manager eyed him curiously. Didn't know you were job hunting. Good luck. Caleb mumbled thanks and stuffed the letter into his pocket. Job hunting. He hadn't applied for anything. This had to be a mistake, or worse, a setup. But curiosity, laced with a flicker of hope, won out. He arranged for Evan to stay hidden longer, promising extra stories that night, and rode the elevator to the 28th floor. The executive level gleamed with polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Chicago skyline. Rachel's assistant, a young man in a crisp shirt, ushered him into her office without delay. The space was modern and minimalist, a large desk, abstract art on the walls, a view of the lake shimmering under the winter sun. Rachel stood by the window, turning as he entered. Today she wore a white blouse and dark slacks, her hair pulled back, exuding quiet authority. "You're here," she said, gesturing to a chair opposite her desk. Her tone was direct but not unkind. "You summoned me?" Caleb replied, sitting stiffly. He felt out of place in his uniform, the fabric scratching against his skin. Not summoned. Invited. Rachel sat folding her hands. "Caleb, I've reviewed your file." His pulse quickened. "My file?" "Yes, and not because I doubt you, but because I'm intrigued. A linguistics graduate from Michigan, top of your class, fluent in Mandarin, Spanish, and French. You were an adjunct professor, published papers on cross-cultural communication. And now, you're mopping floors and living in our basement storage with your son." Caleb's face burned. How did she know about the basement security cameras? A tip from staff. He clenched his fists under the table. That's personal. It doesn't affect my work. But it affects me. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes steady. I know what it's like to be alone in a fight. I'm a single mother, too. My daughter Lily, she's 10. Her father left when she was 2. I've built this company from nothing, but there are days when the weight feels crushing. That morning in the conference room, I was one wrong word away from losing everything. You didn't just translate. You saved us. Silence stretched between them. Caleb stared at his hands, calloused from years of manual labor. Why are you telling me this? Because I see potential wasted, and I don't like waste. She slid a folder across the desk. I'm offering you a position senior language consultant for our international division. Full-time competitive salary benefits. You'll handle translations, negotiations, cultural training for the team. Caleb opened the folder, scanning the offer letter. The salary figure made his head spin enough to afford a real apartment school supplies for Evan without scrimping. But suspicion lingered. And the catch? No catch. But there's more. Rachel's voice softened. Evan would receive a full scholarship to the international school where Lily attends. It's one of the best in the city bilingual programs after school care. He deserves that stability. Caleb's throat tightened. Why me? You don't know me beyond one phone call. Rachel stood walking to the window. She gazed out at the city below her reflection, faint in the glass. Because I believe in people who shouldn't be forgotten. You stepped in when no one else could. You didn't hesitate even in that uniform. That's rare. And honestly, I've been in rooms full of MBAs who couldn't do what you did. Talent like yours, it's not about degrees or titles. It's about showing up. He absorbed her words, the sincerity in them. For years he'd hidden, convinced the world had no place for a broken man like him. Anna's death had stripped him of dreams, leaving only survival. But here was an opportunity, not pity, but recognition. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Say yes. Rachel turned back, a small smile breaking through. Start next month. We'll handle the transition. Caleb thought of Evan curled up in the dark basement, dreaming of places he'd only heard about in stories, of Anna's voice urging him to live for their son. He nodded slowly. All right. Yes. Rachel's smile widened. Welcome to the team, Caleb. As he left the office, the elevator descending, Caleb felt a shift, like stepping out of shadows into light. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was seen. And perhaps that was the beginning of something more. Caleb started his new role a month later, stepping into the Whitaker Global Headquarters, not as a shadow in gray, but as a man in a pressed shirt and slacks a name badge clipped to his chest. The transition felt surreal. He had traded his cleaning cart for a desk on the 28th floor, complete with a computer, a phone extension, and a view that stretched to the horizon. The salary deposited into his new bank account allowed him to rent a modest apartment in a quiet suburb. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen where Evan could do homework without the hum of industrial fans. No more basement shadows. Evan enrolled at the international school, his backpack filled with fresh notebooks and a uniform that made him look older, more confident. But beneath the surface, Caleb wrestled with unease. He wasn't used to being visible. For years, he'd thrived on anonymity, head-down tasks completed without fanfare. Now colleagues nodded in hallways, introducing themselves with handshakes and questions. So, you're the linguistics guy Rachel poached, one said during his orientation. Caleb smiled politely, but inside doubt gnawed. Did he belong here? Or was this a fluke, a temporary reprieve before reality yanked him back? His first major test came 2 weeks in a high-stakes meeting with a delegation from Shanghai negotiating expansions into renewable energy tech. The conference room was packed, executives from both sides, projectors beaming charts, the air thick with anticipation. Rachel sat at the head, her presence commanding as always. She introduced Caleb as the team's cultural liaison, her voice steady. Caleb will ensure clear communication. As the Shanghai lead began speaking in rapid Mandarin, outlining concerns about intellectual property clauses, all eyes turned to Caleb. He was supposed to stand translate and advise. But as he rose, his mind blanked. The words blurred tones he knew intimately suddenly felt foreign. His palms sweated, his throat tightened. Flashbacks hit Anna's accident, the hospital calls in broken English, the isolation that followed. What if he failed? What if this exposed him as the fraud he feared he was? Rachel caught his eye from across the table, a subtle nod, her expression unreadable, but encouraging. It was enough. Caleb inhaled deeply, centering himself. Women hengangxie nin de shijian. He began, his voice gaining strength. We appreciate your time. He translated fluidly, weaving in suggestions to address the IP worries with mutual safeguards, drawing on cultural precedents like guanxi building and trust through relationships. The room leaned in nods, rippling through the delegation. By the end, applause broke out. The Shanghai lead shook Caleb's hand, vigorously complimenting his nuance. Nin de Yuyan, Bujin shi fan yi shi kiao liang, he said. Your language isn't just translation, it's a bridge. Rachel didn't clap, but as the room emptied, she approached. Impressive. You hesitated at first, why... Caleb met her gaze. Old habits. I'm not used to this. You earned it, she replied. Keep showing up like that. Word spread quickly. Colleagues congratulated him in the break room, but whispers followed. In the elevator, he overheard two finance directors. Heard Whitaker pulled him from janitorial. Must be some favor guy doesn't even have an MBA. Another laughed. Special treatment, wonder what strings he pulled. Yay. The rumors stung. Caleb wasn't naive. Corporate ladders were slick with politics. A senior VP, Mark Reynolds, who'd eyed the consultant role for himself, cornered him in the hallway one afternoon. Nice gig you've landed, Morgan. From mops to meetings, Whitaker must see something special. His tone dripped sarcasm, implying favoritism. Caleb kept his response measured. Just doing the work. But the doubts amplified. That night in their new apartment, he paced the living room while Evan slept. The space felt too bright, too exposed. Maybe he should quit, return to cleaning where expectations were low and failures invisible. No one got hurt that way. The next morning, as he prepared to draft his resignation, Evan bounded into the kitchen, his school tablet in hand. Dad, look, we're learning basic Mandarin in class today. I already know some from what you taught me. He beamed, reciting a simple phrase, Ni hao wo jiao Evan. Caleb froze the resignation email, half-typed on his phone. Evan's eyes sparkled with excitement, something absent in the basement days. I want to go to Beijing with you someday, like you and Mom planned. We don't have to dream anymore. We can do it for real. The words hit like a lifeline. Caleb deleted the email, pulling his son into a hug. You're right, buddy. We will. He stayed. The whispers persisted, but Caleb focused on the work-refining contracts training staff, on cultural etiquette bridging gaps in negotiations. His confidence grew, meetings becoming platforms where he shone. Rachel noticed pulling him into strategy sessions, valuing his insights beyond language. Their interactions deepened. Late one evening, after a grueling call with Hong Kong partners, she lingered in his office. You were brilliant today, but I sense you're still holding back. Caleb leaned back in his chair. It's hard to trust this won't vanish. She nodded, perching on the desk's edge. I get it. After my ex left, I built walls too, but walls keep out the good with the bad. Her voice softened, a rare vulnerability. You've earned your place here, Caleb. Don't let the noise convince you otherwise. He met her eyes, a quiet understanding passing between them. It wasn't flirtation, not yet, but a connection forged in shared resilience. As weeks turned to months, conversations shifted from professional to personal, her challenges balancing CEO duties with motherhood, his stories of Anna and raising Evan alone. Rachel's laugh came more freely around him, and Caleb found himself looking forward to those moments. By the end of his third month, the rumors faded as his results spoke louder. A major deal closed, crediting his expertise. Reynolds even grudgingly acknowledged him in a team email. Caleb no longer felt like an imposter. He was stepping fully into the light, one bridge at a time. And in quiet evenings, whispering Mandarin to Evan, he realized this new path wasn't just survival, it was rebirth. Rachel invited Caleb to dinner 2 months after he started framing it as a casual thank you for his work on the Shanghai deal. But as he arrived at the small riverside restaurant overlooking the Chicago River, he sensed it was more. The place was intimate soft lighting tables spaced for privacy, the water reflecting city lights like scattered stars. Rachel waited at a corner booth, her usual power suit replaced by a simple black dress. Beside her sat Lily, a 10-year-old with her mother's sharp eyes and a ponytail that bounced as she colored a menu. "You're here," Rachel said, standing to greet him. "And you brought Evan perfect." Caleb nodded, guiding his son forward. Evan clutched a small backpack, shy but curious. "Hi," he mumbled to Lily. The girl looked up, grinning. "Want a color? I have extra crayons." Within minutes, the kids were at the adjacent table, heads bent together over drawings of imagined adventures. Caleb watched them, a warmth spreading in his chest. Evan hadn't had many playdates in their hidden life. This felt like a glimpse of normalcy. Rachel ordered wine, a crisp white, and they settled in. "To Bridges," she toasted clinking glasses. Caleb sipped the flavor, bright on his tongue. "To unexpected ones." The conversation started light work updates, the latest negotiation wins. But as appetizers arrived, crab cakes and salads, Rachel steered deeper. "Caleb, I've been thinking about that first morning. I was so focused on the deal I didn't see you, not really. Until you spoke." He set down his fork. "I was used to not being seen." She leaned in, her voice lowering. "I know that feeling. After my ex left, I threw myself into the company. Built it brick by brick. But being a CEO, it's lonely at the top. You can't show weakness, can't admit when you're drowning. Lily's the only one who sees the real me, tired, doubtful human." Caleb traced the rim of his glass. "Anna used to say the same. We met in college, bonded over languages. She was the dreamer. I was the planner. We wanted to take Evan to China, show him the Great Wall, the terracotta warriors. But after the accident," his voice caught, "dreams became survival. I hid us away thinking it was safer." Rachel's eyes softened. "And now I'm learning to step out, thanks to you." She reached across the table, her hand covering his briefly. "You've given me something, too. In that conference room, I was ready to fight alone. But you showed up. No agenda, just help. It's rare to find someone genuine in this world." Their mains arrived, grilled salmon for her, steak for him, but the food was secondary. They shared stories, her battles in boardrooms dominated by men, his quiet nights, teaching Evan phrases from a language that kept Anna alive. Laughter mingled with the clink of silverware as Lily and Evan ran over, showing off a collaborative drawing, a dragon soaring over a city skyline. "See, that's us, flying to China someday," Evan said proudly. Rachel smiled at Caleb. "Maybe we all go." As dessert wrapped up chocolate mousse shared among the four, Caleb felt a shift. This wasn't just gratitude, it was connection. Rachel's laugh came easily, her guard down, in a way he'd never seen at the office. When they parted outside, the river breeze cool, she hugged Evan goodbye and turned to Caleb. "Thank you for tonight. It's been real." He nodded, his heart fuller than it had been in years. "Same here." A year passed in a blur of milestones. Caleb thrived in his role, leading training sessions, closing deals that expanded Whitaker Global's reach. The whispers faded entirely. Respect replaced skepticism. Evan excelled at school, his Mandarin classes a highlight, friendships blooming like never before. Then came the letter, a summer scholarship for Evan to study abroad in Beijing. Caleb stared at it in their apartment kitchen, tears blurring the words. It was everything he'd dreamed, with Anna now within reach for their son. At O'Hare Airport, the terminal buzzed with travelers. Evan, backpack slung over his shoulder, hugged Caleb tightly. "I'll miss you, Dad, but I'll learn so much for us." Caleb knelt eyes level with his son's. "I'm proud of you, buddy. Call every day. And remember, wo ai ni," Evan grinned. "Wo ye ai ni." As the boy disappeared through security, Caleb turned surprised to find Rachel and Lily waiting nearby. Rachel held a coffee cup, her smile warm. "Thought you might need company." Lily waved a handmade sign, "Bon voyage, Evan." Caleb's throat tightened. "You didn't have to." "We wanted to," Rachel said, stepping closer. "He's family now, and so are you." They walked to the observation deck, watching planes taxi under the summer sun. Lily chattered about her own school trip, but Caleb's focus was on Rachel, the way she stood beside him, a partner in this new chapter. A year ago, he'd been invisible, mopping floors in silence. Now he translated worlds, not just languages, but lives. He'd bridged gaps for deals for his son, and perhaps for his own heart. As Evan's plane lifted off, Caleb squeezed Rachel's hand. "Ready for what's next," she squeezed back. "With you always." Caleb was no longer the forgotten man in the shadows. He was the one who connected hearts, cultures, futures. In a world quick to judge by surfaces, titles, uniforms, losses, he'd proven that true value lay deeper. Rachel had seen it first, offering a chance when no one else would. And in return, they'd built something enduring, trust, love, a blended family stepping into the light together. From a single forgotten language echoed in whispers, Caleb had found his voice again. And in doing so, he'd reminded everyone no one should be overlooked. Opportunities hid in the most unlikely places, waiting for those brave enough to speak up.